The oath of the unbroken. To die of age is an affront to my oath. The song of steel is my heart's only beat. To stand amidst my enemies is my sacrament of fire. Let my blade carve sanctity from the flesh of the damned. The battlefield is my temple, the clash of arms my worship. The psalms of war are my prayer, the cries of the dying my hymn. For the realms I fight, for my brothers I will die. I remain unbroken beneath Vathar's unyielding eye. We spoke the words together, 20 voices bound in iron, and the oath became thunder in our throats. The sound carried through the broken streets, echoing against shattered stone and splintered beams. The town was no longer a place of living men, but a mausoleum of shattered hopes. Blood had seeped into the cobblestones, filling the gutters until they gleamed like rivers of rust. The bodies of the fallen lay in grotesque contortions, limbs bent at impossible angles, faces frozen in screams that would never fade. The air itself was corrupted, thick with the stench of rot, smoke, and iron. Flies swarmed in black clouds, feasting upon the dead, while carrion beasts prowled the edges of the ruin, drawn by the banquet of flesh. Doors hung from broken hinges, windows gaped like hollow eyes, and the bones of homes stood charred and skeletal against the horizon. Everywhere, silence reigned, broken only by the creak of timber collapsing under its own weight, or the distant howl of something that had survived. The trolls of Terra had passed through here, and their passage was scripture written in ruin. Walls that once guarded families now lay toppled, streets that once carried laughter now carried only ash. Where one troll walked, ruin followed. Where many gathered, realms fell. And here, in this grave of a town, the truth was carved into every stone. No sanctuary could withstand their savagery, no prayer could shield against their strength. We marched as one, 20 strong, bound by scars and silence. I felt the weight of my armor, no polished steel, but the stitched hides of monsters I had slain, their sinew and bone hammered into plates that clung to my chest. Every piece I wore was a trophy, a reminder that survival was carved from conquest. My helmet was no mere helm. It was the face of a beast I had killed, its hollow eyes now mine. When I breathed through its death, and when I gazed upon the world, I gazed through its terror. The blade I carried was long as despair, runes etched deep into its steel. They pulsed faintly, alive with sorcery, binding my soul to the hunt. My hands bore the same runes carved into flesh, so that magic flowed with every strike, every gesture. Flame, shadow, storm, they answered me as if I were their master. At my belt hung relics, shards of forgotten power, charms that whispered in tongues older than the stars. Each artifact was a promise, each talisman a curse waiting to be unleashed. We were hulking, scarred, grotesque, and yet we moved as one, every heartbeat a drum of war, every breath a vow. The air thickened around us, shadows clung to our forms, and the night itself seemed to recoil. I knew then the truth of our creed. To hunt monsters, you had to become one, and the abominations from other realms weren't the only terrors of the night. I gripped my blade tighter, feeling the weight of the oath in my veins. Around me, my brothers were silent, but their silence was not fear, it was focus. We had been raised in the crucible of Vathar's hand, broken and reforged until pain itself became prayer. Then came the sound, a low growl, thick as thunder, rolling from the alleys ahead. The air shifted, heavy with malice. The trolls were near. We tightened formation, shields locking, blades ready. My pulse quickened, not with dread, but with purpose. This was the sacrament. This was the fire. And as the first shadow moved in the ruin, towering and snarling, I whispered the oath again beneath my breath, not as vow, but as weapon. The ground shook, the air split with roars, guttural and thunderous, and from every alley, every shattered doorway they came. A legion of trolls stormed us. We did not falter. We cast lightning down from the heavens, splitting stone and flesh alike. Steel sang, cleaving through bodies, hacking off limbs, splitting skulls. Spells of fire and frost tore through their ranks, and the clash became a storm of blood and thunder. We tore through them like paper. But something was wrong. Each time a troll fell, two more rose from its carcass. The blood pooled, the flesh writhed, and from the remains new bodies clawed their way free. 100 became 200, 200 became 400. The square filled with their howls, the air thick with the stench of rot and spawning flesh. I cut one down, my blade severing its head clean from its shoulders. For a moment I thought the fight was won, but before the body struck the ground, its chest split open, birthing another. My brothers shouted curses, their voices drowned in the tide of shrieks and tearing flesh. These were not trolls as we had known them. These were plague-born. The trolls of Terra were once creatures of brute strength, feared for their savagery, yet bound by mortal flesh. But in the age of corruption, a new breed was birthed, twisted by rot, reshaped by plague. These were the plague-born, horrors that multiplied in death. At the heart of their tide was the queen, the brood mother whose womb was corruption itself. Her breath carried pestilence, her flesh a hive of endless spawn. To slay her was to sever the plague at its source, yet few who sought her lair returned. To kill them fully, we would need black fire, to burn the remains until nothing stirred. Or we would need to find the queen, the brood mother whose corruption birthed this endless tide. The realization struck like a hammer. This was no battle. This was a crucible, and in that crucible only the Unbroken could stand. The tide swallowed us. One by one, my brothers were dragged beneath the swarm, their blades flashing, their spells roaring, their laughter echoing even as their bodies were torn apart. Each death was a hymn, each scream a psalm. I remain unbroken. To die in battle beside my brothers was the most honorable death. We looked to each other, eyes hollow yet burning, and we knew. Today we would not leave this place. Today we would carve our names into the abyss itself. We stripped off our armor, baring our scarred flesh to the swarm. With knives we carved into our chests the banner of the Unbroken, the fractured sun bound in chains, so that even in death the creed would remain etched upon us. We drank the elixir of madness, its fire searing our veins, its poison burning away fear. The world blurred, the air thickened, and the roar of the trolls became a single endless note. Then we marched. We cleaved and cast, steel and sorcery as one. Limbs flew, bodies split, rivers of plague-born blood ran black across the stones. We fought like gods, like demons, like the very monsters we were sent to hunt. But the tide was endless. The swarm was overcoming us all. And as the shadows closed in, I whispered the oath once more, not as vow, but as farewell. Then the storm shifted. I had no time to breathe before a blur tore through the tide, a streak of black flame so swift it seemed the wind itself had taken form. In the space of a heartbeat, 20 trolls fell, their heads rolling across the blood-soaked stone. As their bodies collapsed, the fire clinging to Hero's blade leapt from steel to flesh, engulfing them in shadowed flame. I watched as their hulking forms crumbled, falling into ash before the echo of their death cries had faded. And then I saw him, Hero, cold and unyielding, his eyes like iron, his blade dripping with the ruin of monsters. He did not slow, did not falter. He was the storm given flesh, the black fire that devoured the tide. Above, the air cracked with sorcery, and black flame rained down to consume another score of trolls. Through the inferno strode Tharion, vast and terrible, his presence bending the night itself. Together they moved as twin calamities, speed and fire, steel and sorcery. And the tide that had threatened to drown us broke upon their arrival. Hero and Tharion had come. They fought together like twin swords, their movements seamless, their magic unmatched in all the realm. Hero struck with precision so absolute, it seemed he separated soul from spirit. His blade burned with fire, each troll he touched collapsing into ash. Tharion moved with a butcher's relish, curving flesh from bone, casting tides of necroplasm fire that consumed the plague-born in waves. I watched them dance, a beauty and cataclysm like falling stars. 100 fell to Hero, 100 fell to Tharion. My brothers rallied, our chants rising from our bellies, roaring like thunder. Hero turned his gaze to us. His cold expression broke into a smile. Vathar has entered their lair. He goes to the Queen. We remain here, unbroken under his watchful eye. I knew the assignment, to last, to fight. Back to back I stood with Hero and Tharion, the ones destined to surpass our father Vathar. Together we carved through the tide, each strike a scripture, each spell a hymn. Then we heard it, the roar, the laugh of defiance. Vathar emerged from the shadows, dragging the corpse of the Plague Queen. His laughter echoed across the battlefield, shaking the marrow of every living thing. He raised her body high for all to see. The battlefield fell silent. The trolls looked upon their mother with horror. The Queen was dead. Vathar's voice thundered, "Show them why we are unbroken." And the world ignited. We became the storm. Steel and sorcery tore through the plague. Born. Their numbers dwindled, their courage shattered. They ran, but we hunted. One by one they fell until none remained. The Unbroken stood victorious. And in that silence beneath Vathar's unyielding eye, I knew our scars were scripture, our blood the ink of legend. We were the wall against the abyss. In victory we kneeled before our master, we beat our chest, our oath roaring from our lips. To die of age is an affront to my oath. The song of steel is my heart's only beat. To stand amidst my enemies is my sacrament of fire. Let my blade carve sanctity from the flesh of the damned. The battlefield is my temple, the clash of arms my worship. The psalms of war are my prayer, the cries of the dying my hymn. For the realms I fight, for my brothers I will die. I remain unbroken beneath Vathar's unyielding eye. We are the unbroken watchers of the shattered gates.